be a Karen and get to the next level.
Yeah, this is millions of dollars, right? This is more than a $35 late fee, right? Like hammer them and go and push and push and push and push. So that's mistake number 2 is going to 1031 jail. Hey everybody, what's going on? Brett Schwartz here with Dan Palmer, Capital Gains Tax Solutions. We're here once again to provide some insight, some wisdom, and to really share our journey along the way as we help people build capital gains tax exit plans. Maybe you give that one golden nugget that could save your 1031 exchange. Yes, today we are talking about 1031 exchanges, how to incorporate the deferred sales trust, how to choose a great 1031 exchange company, the 3 biggest mistakes people make when choosing a 1031 exchange company, and how you never have to make those mistakes so you have massive regrets. Dan, let's start with the big problem people have, right? Like, they're facing these 1031 exchanges. They have massive capital gains taxes. They're selling this property they poured their blood, sweat, and tears into, and they're looking to rich dad, poor dad, a 1031 exchange in the next deal, and all the things are going to line up. But then what happens, Dan, once they get into these 1031 exchanges?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of problems that can come. You have, a lot of limitations on what you're able to do in that model. It's a great model, and if everything's lined up, it can really work for you. But the timing restrictions are a huge hindrance. You have to identify in 45 days and close in 180 days. And so, if something's not on the market, or if you can't locate it in time, or, another offer beats you out, you can find yourself in a big pile of trouble.
Yep, and so that leads into the 3 biggest mistakes people are making. Number 1, Dan, is selling without an upleg. Selling without an upleg, meaning you don't even know what you're going to go into. Like, it's kind of like you're walking into the casino a little bit and you're rolling those dice and you're hoping those dice come up with the correct numbers and the right timing, right? So if you don't have an upleg and you're going in just blind about what you're going to buy, that can put yourself in a compromised position. I've seen it over and over and over again when I was a broker at Marcus and Millship, especially. If you knew it was a 1031 exchange buyer, man, you're excited if you're the seller, right? If you're representing the seller and you're the listing agent, because you knew the motivation level was 10x what a regular buyer, I put buyer in quotations, because they don't have a lot of motivation per se unless they're in a 1031 exchange. And so number 1 biggest mistake is selling without an upleg. Now, what's the solution to that, Dan? If we're using the deferred sales trust, talk about how we solve that even if you didn't have an upleg.
Well, the QI company that we work with installs language into the deal that allows you to flip into a deferred sales trust if your 1031 exchange fails. And so that's just a powerful, powerful tool to have in your back pocket. I actually talked to a person at a conference that Brett and I attended together, and it was funny and also sad at the same time. He had 1031 exchanged multiple times, and each time the price went up. So now he's in a ton, and he'd been taking depreciation, so he didn't have a lot of upside. And he went into a deal, and it fell through, and there was nothing on the market for him to buy. And he ended up buying a roller rink because it was the only thing in the price range on the market. And he was telling me, I don't want a roller rink. What am I going to do with the roller rink? But he's like, I just had to get something or I was going to get crushed on taxes. So now I'm stuck with this roller rink that I don't even want. And so
my gosh,
a backup plan is really important to go, the thing that I actually wanted fell through. There's nothing else that I like. Let me flip over to the deferred.
Hold on a second. We can't just go too fast and skate over that too fast. Okay, so you're in Rich Dad Poor Dad. What chapter in the book of Rich Dad Poor Dad, or in this 1031 exchange book, does it say, buy the Roller King, local Roller King, and get your skates on and start rolling around? I mean, come on now. I mean, by the way, I did take my kids to a Roller King for their birthday, like 3 months ago, and the place was great. It was like a flashback to 1988, and they even had like the disco light going, and we're cruising, but they can't be making a lot of money there. I mean, this is like the goodness of their heart. They're just giving back to people. But that is the downside of the 1031 exchange. You make great decisions when you bought that, 2 unit or that 4 unit, or that 10 unit, and then you rolled it, and then you get into this thing where you're, how many times can you roll red versus black, right? And it's kind of like a big, sometimes crapshoot if you don't have your upleg lined up. And so what Dan said was really important. We can save a failing 1031 exchange. We call it the parachute. Like, you're on this 1031 45-day, flight, if you will, right? And you're flying, and you're looking for that property, and you're going down low. That property doesn't work out. Going to the next property, and well, the plane's going to crash at day 46, basically, if you do not have your properties identified. Well, guess what? Capital gains tax solutions is like that parachute that you've had on the whole time. You didn't necessarily know it if you're flying in our 1031 plane, that is, because we do have a 1031 company that Dan was talking about. Now you can just jump out and just go ahead and let that 1031 crash, but you're going to land safely, tax deferred, right on to deferred, we'll call it Deferred Sales Trust Island, baby, right? Talk about what that island looks like when the money's there, Dan, because guess what? Someone listening, Dan, might want to be an entrepreneur. They want to buy a deal. So what does it look like once the fund's in there? Can they buy a deal?
When it hits the deferred sales trust?
Yeah, once you're on the island, you're in deferred sales trust island. You have your beverage of choice. You're on the beach, right? And the water's lapping up, and all of a sudden it's like this tranquility. You have this time and this energy. Can you buy a deal, or what does that look like, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, the flexibility is one of the central factors to the deferred sales trust. You don't have to go into a like kind of investment. You can go in securities. You can go into storage. You can go into, basically Bitcoin or crypto. And you also can purchase another deal. You just have to creatively use our solution by doing a joint venture partnership. But you could buy the thing that you want. But the great thing about the deferred sales trust is you have unlimited options, whereas the 1031, you're constrained. It's a good tool if everything lines up perfectly, but if it doesn't, you're in big trouble. Deferred sales trust gives you a lot of options in terms of exiting and then investing into whatever fits into your lifestyle, whether you want truly passive income, whether you want to stay active in real estate. You have all the opportunities to go whatever direction you feel led to.
Yep. So this is a big idea, right? Don't do a 1031 trade into a deal that crushes your wealth, right? That has you buying Roller Kings or have you buying this triple net deal that's fixed on the returns and have some options to increase every year, but it's really not moving the needle for you, right? I think that's another mistake people make. They end up settling for like a medium-sized deal that really doesn't unlock what they really want, which most of the time is what's called truly passive income, something that actually not just triple net passive income, where it's around 5%, but maybe an 8, 10, maybe even 12%, depending on where and how we invest these funds. And the income is so much greater than what you sold for that really changes people's lives. So number one selling mistake, our biggest mistake for a 1031 exchange is selling without an up leg. We just talked about the solution. We can dive out of the plane with the parachute of the deferred sales trust, land in capital gains tax solutions or deferred sales trust island, have options to do your deal. Number two biggest mistake, and this one just drives me crazy, Dan, because there's 1031 exchange companies that don't want you to know about our strategy. In fact, they put you in what's called 1031 in jail. And so number two mistake is don't go to 1031 jail. What do we mean by that? Well, we mean choosing a company that doesn't either know about how to use a deferred sales trust within a 1031 or choosing a company that won't accommodate. In fact, it's kind of funny, Dan, the names of these companies, they're accommodators, right? That's what they're kind of known for. They're accommodating. They're there to help you accommodate your trade and your exit and your next purchase. But the worst part is when you're with this company when they go, no, and this is the real life. I feel like at least once a month, maybe once every 2 months, someone calls me like, Brett, I'm in a 1031 exchange. I want to use your service. I found you on YouTube. I love the concept. Oh my gosh, everything makes sense. But I'm in the exchange now. Can I still work with you, right? And the sad part is, yeah, we can work with anybody, but the accommodator, they might not be an accommodator. They may be 1031 jail. So Dan, what does 1031 jail mean versus 1031 accommodator?
Are you going to accommodate other options? That's basically what it comes down to. So the jail is just someone that says, hey, you came to us for this 1031 exchange. That's the only thing you can do. If everything lines up, you're just out. If everything lines up, you're fine. But if it doesn't, you're out of luck. The accommodator is like, how can we accommodate you to meet the needs that arise over time? Everything doesn't always work right according to the playbook. Sometimes you have to save something, especially when you're not in control of what the other side of the transaction's doing. And so being in jail just limits your opportunities, but being with an accommodator that truly is going to accommodate you. If the 1031 exchange fails, they'll accommodate you switching to the deferred sales trust and saving the deal.
Nailed it. Okay. And so 1031 jail means they will not move out of the shackles that they have you in, right? Meaning like they're just locking you in, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You cannot use anything outside of the box of their 1031. And they'll have their legal reasons for this. I'm going to give you kind of a solution and a talk track to help you work through this here in a second. But I want to give you a live deal. This happened. I'll never forget, I was touring this property in Sacramento, and I'm looking at it. It's a beautiful day, and I get the call, and it's the frantic call, like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I found you. Like, I have, it was like day 40. I only have 5 days left to identify, but the deal just fell through that I thought I was going to get, and I'm going to pay like $3 or $4 million in tax. But I was scrambling. I found you on YouTube. Can you help me? And I said, well, maybe. I mean, we can, but are you in 1031 jail? Like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, well, who you're using, okay? And they mentioned this big company. By the way, here's the first clue I want to let you know. If they're a really big, huge marketing, massive kind of corporate 1031, I call like the 500-pound gorillas, the odds of them helping you are very, very low, okay? Why? Because they're in the business of 1031. That's how they get paid, right? They get paid by keeping your money in 45 to 180. Another little tip here, which actually we'll save it for tip number 3. But 45, 180, they get paid by keeping the money, like a bank, right? They get the interest off of that. Okay, so they're not in the business of basically eliminating the need for themselves. In fact, with our strategy, we can close it. We don't even have to use a 1031, right? So we can close it at close of escrow. But we're just giving you another opportunity here, okay? So anyways, they call me, they're frantic. I said, who's the group? They mentioned the group. I go, man, this is like Darth Vader. Like they're gonna just like boom, boom, like start playing the music, because they will not, and they don't care. I mean, they really don't care. That's what it feels like. And so they go, oh no, they'll care. Okay, give them a call. Give them the best, even tell them that you're gonna probably bring a lawsuit their way. Give them a call. And it's like the other side just said, pound sand. They said, we don't care. And the guy says, I'll never do business with you guys ever again. This is gonna cost me millions of dollars. In other words, what does it mean to you, Mr. 1031 big company? What do you have to do with my taxes? What do you have to do with my exchange? Like, I'll sign a hold harmless, I'll sign a release. Like, this has nothing to do with you guys. I just want you to accommodate. So Dan, what's the solution to that if they say that? What comes to mind?
Well, it sounds to me like it's too late.
Okay, well maybe. Let me give you one other thing. Sometimes, and we've done this with a couple companies, if you push hard enough, you can ask for a transfer, okay? So it's kind of in between, where you say, look, I know you won't accommodate. I get that. I want you to transfer the exchange to another accommodator, okay? Now, the one that you would transfer is the one that we work with and that they will accommodate, right? This is key because it helps them, it kind of gives them a little way out. Now they're going to tell you, we can't transfer. And you go, okay, well, let me talk to your manager. Let me talk to your manager. And just kind of put, it's like the Wells Fargo when you had those late fees, Dan, and they're like, you have to pay the $35 late fee. And you say, sorry, sir, I cannot help you. You say, well, can I speak with your manager? And then all of a sudden you get to the manager and what do they say, Dan?
They say, okay.
They say, okay, yeah.
Be a Karen and get to the next level.
Yeah, this is millions of dollars, right? This is more than a $35 late fee, right? Like hammer them and go and push and push and push and push. So that's mistake number 2 is going to 1031 jail. Now, how do you solve that, Dan? Tell them about our best 1031 exit plan. You don't need to, just tell them basically how we work with an accommodator and how it all works.
Yeah, we just have an accommodator that has language in their contract that allows you to flip to a deferred sales trust. So,
yeah.
We would direct you there. If the 1031 works,
yep,
you're golden. But if it doesn't, you have a plan B that's going to save you.
Yeah, by the way, sometimes it's multifaceted, okay? It's not just a regular 1031. Sometimes we will use a Delaware statutory trust, and sometimes we use a deferred sales trust and do half and half. I had a client out of Texas, $6 million deal. They did 3-part of it. They did a partial Delaware 1031, a partial regular 1031, and a deferred sales trust. And so what we're saying here, by the way, I don't want to make sure this is really clear. We're not saying the deferred sales trust is perfect for everyone in every situation. But what we're saying is it should at least be an option to save a failed one, or sometimes depending on your debt over basis issues, your debt issues, all of these different things and the deals that you're finding. You might sell a $6 million deal and find a perfect $2 million deal, but the challenge with the 1031 exchange, you have to buy a $6 million deal if you want to complete that. Well, why not buy the perfect $2 million deal instead of going for a deal that a Roller King at $6 million that you didn't want to buy, but because it had to fit the box? Why not buy the perfect $2 million and let the other $4 million go into the deferred sales trust? That's what we're talking about here. It's just enhancing what you can do. Okay, which leads to mistake number 3. Mistake number 3, Dan, is this. You don't realize what you're really solving for in the first place, right? And you're taking on too much debt into the next deal, okay? And this really has to do, it's kind of a 3-part thing. It's timing, it's debt, and it's also not being really clear on what you really want, okay? And this might be the first biggest mistake you should start with, but I think it's so important for all of us to really be clear, like what matters the most for this exit in this season of your life, and for your family, for your mission, for your values, for what you're trying to build in legacy with where you're at. And is the exchange, when you started this real estate world of your world 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, building it, have you already accomplished the millions? I mean, we have clients, Dan, they've accomplished the millions. They have accomplished their net worth. Like, in fact, they have good cash flow. It's not passive yet. And they're not clear on that, right? They're not clear on how this fits in with their legacy or fits in with their current season of life. So Dan, how do you help people get clear on that when you're talking with them and they're coming to us?
I mean, the best way is asking questions. Say, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And let them share, and then, kind of mirror back to them what you're hearing, but getting specific on what they should be thinking about, because they might not know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that's really clear. Number 2 is the debt piece. Realizing that every time you take on debt, you're increasing your risk. And the time to not take on debt is when you feel like the market's high. Meaning a couple of years ago when interest rates were uber low and there was 100% bonus depreciation and these valuations were crazy for rents were double-digit returns, especially multifamily. Like, we kind of knew it was high, I mean, I think I did. And we told our clients, hey, get out, diversify, get in a lot of real estate debt. That's what we did for the majority, 98% of the exits. It was great. A few others went into some multifamily deals that didn't do so well. We didn't know quite what would happen. No one really can predict that kind of thing. But just kind of looking at the trend of real estate, where are you at? Are we in a buying market or a selling market? And if we're in a selling market, it's really high. That means we want to get out of debt. Well, how do you get out of debt with a 1031? That's the challenge. The mistake is forgetting that when you do equal or greater value, it means equal or greater debt. And the more you're 1031ing, the more likely you are selling high and buying higher, if you're not looking at the trends and say, so here's a cool strategy. Kind of what I said, where you can do a partial Delaware, Dan. Guess when you do a partial Delaware, one of the advantages of the Delaware 1031 is you get the debt out of your name, okay? So if I had, let's say a $10 million exit and I had $4 million of debt, okay? And I had a 0 basis, right? We can do a partial 1031 where we put about a 20% down payment that replaces that $4 million of debt. But the 20% only has to be on the $4 million. So I'm going to take $4 million. Okay. I'm going to take 20%. That's $800,000. So $800,000 of my equity, Dan, can go towards that Delaware 1031. But all I really care about that Delaware is getting that debt out of my name. You know why? Because it's going to free up, in this scenario, $6 million minus $800,000, about $5.2 million of equity for my powder to be dry. And this is the power of the deferred sales trust and using capital gains tax relief to help you through this scenario, because now you are in a position of strength and leverage. You can wait and have time on your side for the market to shift. And that's what we're seeing, Dan. We're seeing some of the best buying opportunities. In fact, I think 2026 is finally going to be the best buying opportunities. 2025 has had some. 2024 was pretty low. But this is the year where the jiu-jitsu tap out is happening, the arms are breaking, and people are handing back the keys to the banks, and they're running out of cash to raise. So that pretty much wraps it up, Dan, for this 1031. Any last thoughts or questions before we let everybody go?
Do you want to give any info on who we work with?
Yeah, so we'll go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, and if you go there, then we'll no cost, no obligation consultation call, and then we can put you in touch with the best 1031 exit plan that we have in place. So that's the best place to go. Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan is the book to check out on Amazon. And then as a reminder, our strategy works for Bitcoin, business, real estate, primary homes or investment real estate, stock, cryptocurrency, really any asset of any kind can use our strategy. You just had to get started today. $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. He's Dan Palmer. I'm Brett Swartz. We appreciate everyone listening, watching out there, and we'll talk to you all again real soon. Bye now.